I guess I figured I might as well do one on Mary Sue's anyway. Even though, there's guy characters that get the same treatment. But I guess we'll start with the basics. Pretty much these types of characters are already at the apex of everything, not just in terms of their overall arc or skills or powers. It's pretty much like a gravitational black hole that sucks in everything to whatever the Sue is doing. Which again, I guess in this case, I'll also use it to also refer to male characters that exhibit the same things. But far too often than not, it's basically, I guess, a way to get around a lot of plot issues without much thought. Again, this is all my opinion. Um, that, and I guess in some ways, it can also be applied to like you want to be able to get a story across very quickly, but I ultimately see Sue's as more than just aspects of certain other things. Um, it's basically like having a one man band where you just have the one character do everything. They don't really have a need for a side cast. They don't have a need for a mentor. They don't usually have a need for um, even any kind of stakes, really. Like you can have certain kind of stakes to the character through external factors, through internal factors, different things. And depending on your wheelhouse, that might appeal to some readers versus others. But unlike flat arc characters, mechanically, Mary Sue's are already at the peak of literally everything. So, what is there ultimately for them to do? I mean, I guess you could have a Mary Sue as a plot device to help other characters along, kind of like a maybe even a mentor capacity, but it ultimately sucks all the air out of the room. All the other characters really won't have anything to do because the actual Sue mechanical character is there to cover everybody's bases. That's how I see it. This character, unlike a flat art character, has no need to develop anything. Flat art characters help develop their side cast, like I've said in other videos. So they're central for that aspect. These flat art characters can have a lot of different skills. They could have a lot of different powers, or they could just be like Paddington Bear, where they change people's outlooks. Which that's what they do most of the time. Like Goku will galvanize his friends to something through just his simple love of fighting and food and everything else. Um, Superman is also an example of a what I consider mostly a flat art character because he's supposed to stay consistent within his setting. Now, lately that hasn't been the case, but again, like I said, I'm not going to focus on the dead IPs as much. So let's carry on. The different aspects of many different Sues. A lot of people think that Mary Sue is a very derogatory term, but I just see it as more of a mechanical term. When you let certain aspects get to such a point where it's like, again, why do you even need a story or a cast around this character when they can legitimately do everything? Um, I guess if you're going to make a godlike Sue character, it's like, what's the point? Even within Star Trek, I'll just mention this real quick, like, they gave Q all these really omniscient powers, but they had his um, balance of virtues and vices on display to basically give him hurdles to come across, like dealing with Picard, Janeway, and all that, as a quick example. But again, to get away from other dead franchises. But sadly, I guess you have to reference them every once in a while so you can get across the cultural zeitgeist to be like, okay, this is the example, and here's a little bit of my counterpoint or something like that. I think some say Mary Sue is derogatory because it's like, oh, you only mean the women, the women. It's like, no, it's a setup that indicates men and women most times where they have tendencies where it's like, again, what's the purpose of this story if you have a character that can literally MacGyver everything around them? It's why characters like Goku get a bad rap, even though he's a flat art character, but people often say he's too boring, but it's like the guy is essential to his setting. So his basic supporting cast changes around him, and that becomes a clear barometer of how much they've changed versus how much he needs to remain consistent. But far too often not, especially even among writing circles, women have a tendency to get a lot more prickly if their character is accused of being a Mary Sue or Marty Stew, like wish fulfillment male character, which, you know what, based on the amount of erotica I see, it's like that pretty much comes up fairly often. Um, Now, usually you can have like a ditzy Sue, you can have the Mary Sue encapsulate everything you don't like about people, I guess. Most of the time people will indicate that a Mary Sue is a poorly written character. I personally think they're a mechanically expedient character, where it's like if you don't have any idea how to put something forward, then the Mary Sue is the insert that will basically force the plot to go in some direction. A lot of times, Sues are accused of being a writer insert, which I could see how that could happen. It takes a lot for a lot of writing chops for a writer to basically put a kind of self-insert in there, but not have it derail everything. Because I know like stuff like Terry Pratchett and a few others have the chops for that. Like they can put in their like little asides and everything or observations without it completely derailing the narrative or the storyline or even the characters themselves. A good example of this being an ultimate derailment, again, Laurel K. Hamilton's Anita Blake. If you want a point by point basis of what not to do to your readership, your characters, your setting, she is the ultimate Sue encapsulation to me now. And she went from a respectable character that actually had virtues and flaws to being a black hole Sue. Again, mechanically, Sue characters are pretty much God mode. In superhero stuff, godlike characters usually have something that can counteract them. Like, again, the real quick, just like Darkseid versus, the High Father. They have to have like a equal opposite that can basically keep each other in check. But that comes with a little bit of world building. Like, if you, as a writer, if you don't feel like starting off really, really big, then just start off simple with like two characters interacting and then go from there. You don't have to basically go after everything all at once. Um, the reason why Uplift Protocol has such a big cosmic footprint is because I have enjoyed a lot of comic books in the past that have that kind of bent to them. So I'm used to seeing what's in there as far as like, intergalactic civilizations going up against each other, that sort of thing. What I hope not to have is a mechanically induced Sue character, whether it's male or female, that can snap its fingers and solve everything. As oh man, excuse me, more allergies. But basically, that's why I have it to where the scholars have their natural stopping points. Like, there's other races that came before them that had even more technological prowess, but the Calamity Unity situation is what counterbalanced that. So again, you don't always have to have some big main force extremely explained. You can have it kind of like as this overall central antagonist, but it's kind of like this worry that's in the background while you're dealing with lower level tier antagonists until the heroes are ready to go tackle that really big bad situation. Um, Again, mechanically, Mary Sue's invalidate that sort of setup. Like, if they can just snap their fingers and even God is dead, then what's the point of the story? Because you have to get your tension either internally, externally, whether you get your tension from where the characters don't know if they're going to survive or whether or not you don't know the characters are going to survive. I guess I'll link that tension stuff below again because it really is interesting. Because mechanically, Mary Sue's get rid of all kinds of tension, like all the tension, whether you're the kind of person that gets tension from J.R.R. Martin bullshit or tension from, uh, you know, Tolkien-esque kind of adventures where you as the reader might not think they're in complete danger all the time, but if you get tension from believing the character's in danger and seeing how they get out of it, then yeah, there is that too. But yeah, what else about the Mary Sue's? I'm trying to see it. Like Mary Sue is an idealized character. Honestly, what is one person's ideal is probably another person's like, oh my god, it's a fucking Karen. Again, even with this, Mary Sue's are often conflagellated with power fantasies, characters with no flaws, idealized stuff. Arthur insert. Uh, they could be like the center of attention. Again, it all comes down to it's a mechanical insert that if you can't figure out how to get past a certain plot point, oh, there's the Mary Sue to instantly snap their fingers and carry the plot forward again. In a way, Mary Sue is kind of like a crutch as you're learning how to write things. Um, but it also depends. Like some people genuinely enjoy the complete 100% Mary Sue. Um, I guess again, it turns. It's basically what wheelhouse are you going for? I don't consider a lot of aspirational heroes uh, Mary Sue's. A lot of them have to overcome something, whether it's an external threat or internal threat. Um, let's see, what else? Often, Mary Sue's are involved with fan fiction of dead IPs and other things that I guess that also explains why a lot of those books are in dire straits right now. You have to have people basically put things together to where you don't have somebody self-insert, which in a way, Revan from the Star Wars stuff was a self-insert that gained canon Sue status. Um, let's see, let's get away from more dead franchises for a while, because if I have to, I will use them as examples, but I still rather not. Um, you can make a character that's interesting that has more virtues than vices or flaws, basically, and still have them be accused of being like too mechanically powerful to where they will be equated to a Stu or Sue, whatnot. In fact, yeah, just if you ever have any time, go to the library or go to a bookstore, pick up a current Anita Blake book, and you'll see how not to write everything within those pages. Because sometimes you have to read stuff that's really poorly done in order to understand, like, hey, this is how I can improve. And yes, Laurel K. Hamilton did the ultimate betrayal and derailed her own series from being a somewhat popcorn-filled, urban fantasy mystery setup to just straight up IKEA porn. And never go full IKEA porn. Mm-mm. It's rather boring, and it's mechanical, and it has no sense of intimacy whatsoever. So you do not want to go there. Mm-mm. No way. I guess the whole idea of Sue's can also be like a placard for, oh, I'm a victim of this. Like if you make fun of this whamming character, then you're just a ism that doesn't want to see women succeed. It's like pick up any pretty much pick up any book from before 2005, before on the sleeve representation became a thing, like to the point that it is now, and you'll see that people have been able to make varied, interesting male and female characters for quite a while. Um, and also, the reason why stuff like Narnia remains a classic is because it showcased characters with virtues, and vices. I personally think every character a writer makes is some form of wish fulfillment. In my case, having Eliza be part of NASA, even as a starship captain, that's a complete wish fulfillment for me. I wanted to be able to be good enough for NASA, but my math skills fucking suck. But I created a world where anybody can basically become whatever kind of space-bound setup they want to be, because now that civilization has habitat rings. They've colonized other planets within the solar system and beyond. You can be a space-bound trash man if you want to. Like kind of like that one Planets anime did, where getting rid of space junk, but you're out there in space actually doing stuff. Um, With Mary Sue characters, yeah, the biggest thing I see against them, to be honest, is why are they there when they can basically snap their fingers and the story is solved? It's like, then why do you want to go along with that story? Like, she can already solve everything, or he can already solve everything, so why even follow that journey? That's what it all really boils down to. I mean, you could do power fantasies and wish fulfillment pretty well, provided you balance it with like a likable cast. Basically, have it to where that character doesn't do everything. You could even have like a Power Ranger setup where there's multiple characters that have similar skills, but their personalities and actions are what differentiate them. So, again, Mary Sue type characters are just something that you could probably mess around with as you're building stuff, but don't expect character setups that are like that to really attract as many readers. Um, and the other thing, though, the reason why fan fiction sometimes feels empty and useless is because half the time people will end up having the established characters react in such a way that wouldn't be considered normal. Like, say, like I was to put a self-insert into the Babylon 5 universe and have all the main characters of Babylon 5 listen to my character like they were um, following another Valen type setup, then that pretty much negates Valen as a character. So I guess in a way, maybe it's better to just do tabletop and have certain stuff like set up in a way where you can just have min max to your heart's content. I mean, because sometimes you just got to get a character like that out of the way to get it out of your system. Like, it's like I got to do this. That's the reason why every once in a while I'll use like cheat codes on freaking games to make the character completely invulnerable, and then just do some crazy shit for a while, and then I get it out of my system. Mary Sue's are kind of like where you never really quite get that out of the system. Where I guess as you're writing, instead of having the plot warp itself to one singular character, that's why you have to make plot points for all the characters. So that way it feels like there's more moving parts rather than, say, pulling Anita Blake and then everything revolves around her constantly, like, bar none. Like, the other characters don't have a will of their own. Because I guess that's a way that Mary Sue's also, basically derail things, is when they don't basically let all the other things in the setting have their own will. It's like it's all in service to like one character, which in a way doesn't even make much sense because if that Mary Sue can do anything they want, then why do they even need the Psycats to kowtow to them or cater to them? That's just some stuff I've noticed. I'm thinking maybe I'll put this Mary Sue thing onto YouTube. Probably just put it in maybe the reader adventures and topics because I don't feel like I went full like ranty. So have a good day, everybody.